One of the biggest questions that I get asked a lot is what laptop do I recommend for video editing, what spec do I need to have, and what external hard drives are best for editing. Now, the main goal that you must have is to edit as fast as possible, because the faster you edit your videos, the sooner you will get new projects that will allow you to make more money. So investing on a good computer or a laptop is very important when it comes to videography or video editing. And to determine how fast you will be able to edit, there are a lot of things to look for, but there are 4 main specs that we will be going over in this video, and those are storage, processor, memory, and graphics. Now let's start with the first one, which is the storage. Now this is probably the most important element for a speedy laptop, because if this is slow, everything else will be slow. Most new laptops today comes with SSD, or also known as solid state drives, and SSD has no moving parts. And just because it has no moving parts, it works much faster than a HDD, which is also called as hard disk drive, which does have moving parts. So HDD makes basic tasks like launching Premiere Pro or opening your Chrome browser about 2 to 4 times slower compared to SSD. So first thing you want to make sure is to have a laptop that has SSD and not HDD. And talking about the storage usually starts from 256 GB and goes until 1 TB in most of the laptops, but I'd recommend a laptop that has at least 512 GB, because if you buy a 256 GB laptop, you might face storage problems and you may have to keep deleting your files to make space for the new ones. I personally use Asus ROG Advantage Edition that comes with 1 TB of SSD, and I face less problems when it comes to storage. So do take consideration in investing a bit more to avoid any kind of storage issues in the future. Now let's move on to our second important spec, which is the processor or the CPU. Now the CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. The speed of processor is measured in gigahertz, and most of the laptops comes with multiple processor, which is referred as cores. And the processor is important to processing your footage faster, because having a slow processor affects things like laggy playback on the timeline, your render speed, and your export settings, and etc. So generally, the more processing cores that you have at the higher speeds, the faster those tasks will perform. So you will usually find 2 popular processors that is named as Intel and AMD. Now it's not like one processor is better than the other, but certainly both of these companies keep launching new powerful processors which are somewhat better than the other in different ways. From Intel, you will usually find processor named i3, i5, i7, and i9 processor. As with AMD, you will find processors named Ryzen 3, Ryzen 5, and Ryzen 9. Now keep in mind that the bigger the number that you get, the more expensive your laptop would be, but the more powerful the laptop would be. And also same goes with the AMD. The higher the number you go, the better the performance that you get, but the more expensive it gets. And as we already talked about how having more cores will impact your speed, here's what I mean. The i9 processor gives you total number of 24 cores, which is divided into 8 high performing cores when you're doing something CPU intensive work, and it also gets 16 efficiency cores for less workloads. Moving down to i7 processor, you get 8 high performance cores, but you only get 8 high efficiency cores. That brings the total of 16 cores. With core i5, you get 6 high performance cores, and you get 4 or 8 efficiency cores depending upon the model you get. And then there is core i3, with which you can only get 4 high performance cores. Now while buying laptops, you will also find these letters next to the processors, and these are very important letters, and let me explain you what exactly it means. Now the first processor that you will find on cheaper laptops are U series. Now these can be found in most of the convertible laptops, and these are good for office works or managing accounts or any day-to-day tasks. Now these laptops give you better battery backup, but for video editing purpose, I definitely wouldn't recommend a laptop with U series processor. Next up, we have HA series processor from AMD, which is faster than U series but slower than H series processor laptops. That brings us to the H series. Now this processor from Intel are pretty fast, so if you want to do graphic stuff like run basic stuff on After Effects or use Fusion Page, then I would recommend the laptops with H series. And then comes the HX series laptop. Now these laptops are the benchmark currently, and they give you desktop performance, and these processors are great for gaming, but they also do a lot better for editing purposes as well. So if you want to do those next level transitions and advanced color grading on 10-bit 60 FPS footage, the HX series processor is the one that I would go for. But they are mostly on the expensive side, and this laptop usually costs you over a lakh, but they do the job pretty well for the price. Now moving on to the next important spec to look for while buying a laptop is RAM, which is also known as random access memory. Basically, the more RAM you have in your laptop, the more app you can run continuously and the better they perform. And the memory are measured as gigabytes in RAM, and the baseline minimum that you will need to have is at least 16 GB of RAM to be able to use editing softwares like DaVinci Resolve. So I would suggest to get a 16 GB RAM over 8 GB, because if you get a 8 GB RAM laptop, then you will only be able to edit 1080p footage as long as you close down all the other programs while using Premiere. And in order to edit 4K video, you will need to upgrade to 16 GB RAM, and in order to edit 4K 60 frames per second videos, you will need 32 GB of RAM, and you can also run a lot of background application with it. And upgrading to 64 GB is probably only necessary if you want to edit 8K footage and also plan on running other heavy softwares in background like After Effects. Now my current laptop has 16 GB of RAM, which I feel works fine for the stuff that I shoot and edit. Moving on to the last spec to look for when buying a laptop is graphics. Your GPU or graphic processing unit is basically a specialized CPU. So in general, with video editing, what GPU does is that it just accelerates the tasks that are generally managed by CPU. So you have to remember that a good CPU will carry most of the load, and that is why you need to focus on getting a good processor, which is more important for video editing. And the graphics play much bigger role in more graphics heavy program like After Effects, where you want to create those sick effects that you usually see on YouTube and Instagram. One bonus tip that I'd like to give you guys is to also make sure to keep in mind the display, and also make sure to ask the store to calibrate your monitor so that the colors on your display is more accurate while color grading. So now that you know what to look for while buying a laptop, here are some of my suggestions on which laptops you can buy in all price ranges. Starting off with the budget laptops with price of 50,000 rupees, you can go for something like Asus VivoBook 16X, as this laptop comes with 16 GB of RAM, and you also get 512 GB of SSD, which is actually pretty good to run softwares like Premiere Pro, and you can also do basic stuff on DaVinci Resolve. Coming to the budget of 70,000 rupees, the laptop that I would suggest at this price range would be the HP Victus. And taking the budget to 1 to 1.5 lakhs, I'd suggest something like HP Omen or something like Asus ROG G16, which are pretty powerful gaming laptops that will also get your video editing job done very easily. So there you have it. These are the specs that I would look for while buying a laptop. And if you want to learn more about lighting, filmmaking or video editing, you can check out my free 1-hour filmmaking training where I explain everything in detail, and you can also download my cool assets for free, which will be given down to you in the description. So thank you and see you in the next one.